Christina Jensen with GVG Tours. We're a family business and we do a lot of travel. So I do know a lot about traveling, and we tend to work with retired people. So this is a perfect topic for me to discuss with you. So just to kind of tell you what the format's going to be, I'm going to go through and talk about some of the importance of travel and how it is, there's a lot of really fantastic things that it can provide for you in retirement. And then I thought at the end I would give an ample amount of time to answer any questions that you might have that I didn't cover. And I'm also going to provide some travel tips too at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. And I wanted to point out these pictures here. My father and I own the business together. He travels with our groups, and he's the one who took these pictures. So the top picture is taken in Tanzania, and any guesses where that bottom picture is? It's actually Niagara Falls, but it's Niagara Falls on the American side. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So these are the main areas that we're gonna discuss. Travel as a means of personal growth and well-being. So reduces stress, mental health benefits, the physical health benefits, the importance of the social connections and relationships that you make while traveling, personal growth and discovery, and then overcoming obstacles that prevent you from traveling. And then I'm going to end with some travel tips and questions. And that's a picture I took in Iceland. Okay, so let's talk about how does travel reduce stress. It provides us from a daily escape from our everyday stressors. And I cited some studies here. So a study published in the Journal of Psychological Science found that the positive effects of a vacation can last for a very long time, for even weeks or months after the trip. And imagine you're looking at pictures, talking to friends, family about your trip. It brings back all those great feelings. Research conducted at the University of California, San Francisco, demonstrated that women who took vacations regularly, actually their stress hormones, which they were able to test, had improved or had reduced the levels, and it improved obviously their immune function. And then a study published in Applied Research in Quality of Life found that travel experiences can lead to increased creativity, which makes sense. You see a lot of inspiring things when you travel, and it improved problem-solving skills, because when you travel, there are always some problems that you have to resolve, and obviously that helps to lower stress levels. And then lastly, the research published in the Journal of Psychosomatic Medicine showed that people who took vacations had a lower risk of heart disease and lower stress levels compared to those who didn't take vacations. So these are all very positive things and can be documented on how it really helps with reducing stress. Next, we're going to talk about the mental health benefits. So the Global Commission on Aging and Trans-America Center for Retirement found that travel, especially for seniors, is associated with an increased feeling of happiness and overall well-being, okay? Travel can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression. You've got something to look forward to, something to plan for. It's really fun. Travel often involves exploring new places, learning about new cultures, and navigating unfamiliar environments. And these types of experiences really stimulate your brain and promote cognitive health. And it helps to reduce the risk of cognitive decline, which is obviously very important. And then planning and looking forward to a trip gives you a sense of purpose, that excitement as we talked about, and combats feelings of boredom. All right, so the physical health benefits, if you travel, you know you're not just sitting the whole time. So it often involves walking, exploring new places, and these physical activities help you maintain your mobility and flexibility and improves cardiovascular health. And many of the travel destinations have just beautiful locations, right? Those natural, beautiful locations, and encourage you to get outdoors and really experience those places. And sometimes if you feel like hiking or swimming or walking, these are all great. And then a lot of people get stuck in a rut, and travel helps you get out of that daily routine. And it encourages you to kind of rest, relax, and enjoy what you are seeing. And this can also really can lead to improved sleep, which is very important. And then obviously better sleep means you're a healthier person. Travel also involves less time spent sitting and time engaged in activities and exploration. This reduces sedentary behavior, which is really important to reduce and get you up and walking around. And then planning trips and setting travel goals can serve as motivation. I know a lot of people will say, well, I want to go here, but I'm not up to that physical ability yet, so I'm going to start walking. And they start with really low goals and get up to that point, and they feel very proud of themselves and are able to do that. So these are kind of the physical health benefits. Now let's talk about the cultural and emotional enrichment. So when you learn about different cultures, by trying their foods, by engaging in local traditions, these are all intellectually stimulating and emotionally enriching. It really broadens your perspective. And we all know that that's a very positive thing. And it fosters cultural awareness. You become aware of the importance of different traditions, different things to different cultures. It also involves adapting to unexpected situations and problem solving, which really improves your emotional reliance. Oftentimes I hear people say, I haven't traveled, they watch the news and things seem kind of scary and they're uncertain about things. And then they go on their first trip and they realize, you know what? I did just fine. I was great. It was fun. And that really opens the door for them and makes them feel better about themselves and more confident. And then navigating new experiences and situations can be, like I said, really empowering. You feel good about it. The social connections. Hopefully when you travel, you meet new people. And if you do group travel, which is what a lot of our people do, group travel really is fantastic because someone else does all of the planning. You simply show up and listen to directions. And so it really reduces that stress. But also, really probably more important, you have a whole new friend group or people you get to talk to, get to learn about, and that's really important. And it's great for that social engagement. We know that people need to be engaged with other people. We have a lot of times we'll have single travelers on our trip, and every single one of our trip will have at least one. It's usually 2, 3, 4, 5 single travelers who are traveling by themselves, and they're a little concerned. I'm not going to know anyone on the trip. I'm by myself. And within a day or two, they've got people to eat with. They've got, a lot of friends. And sometimes they meet someone who is also a single traveler, and they decide to travel together. And then, of course, travel allows you to create lasting memories. If you travel, sometimes people will travel with family and friends, and that's also, those great, great memories. And that can really bond people together. So let's talk about personal growth and discovery. Traveling to new places, experiencing different cultures, and seeing these awe-inspiring sights, they really can spark your creativity and inspire you to think about maybe new hobbies, interests, or artistic pursuits. A lot of times when you're traveling, hopefully you're taking pictures. And we had someone who traveled with us who really then took photography to another level. They'd done some travel, they saw their pictures, they're like, these are pretty good, and I really enjoyed. And then actually has been taking that into a business. He's retired, but he decided, I'm really good at this. And so that was an avenue he would never have found had he not traveled. Traveling provides an excellent opportunity for you to engage in lifelong learning. We all know you have to continue learning throughout your life, and you probably wouldn't be here if you weren't interested in that. It's super critical and very important. And a lot of times almost all trips will include some sort of historical site, museums, educational institutions that really help you understand and expand your knowledge base. Travel provides opportunities for solitude and self-reflection. Sometimes people just like to go and experience something by themselves and just sit and think about all that inspiration and think about some deep thoughts. You can use this time to really think about your life's journey and new goals and better understanding of what's important to you. And then stepping out of your comfort zone, right? That's always an important thing to do, sometimes a really hard thing to do. And travel can provide that. It can become a catalyst for that. And we had, on our Kenya trip, we do hot air balloon safaris, okay? And people think, hot air balloons in Kenya, or Tanzania. And the positive thing is there's no electrical lines, right? So that's a huge thing. But they were scared to death. And it was optional. They didn't have to do it. And she got on it, and it was her favorite part of the trip. Favorite part of the trip. And she's up until like right before they were going to board, she was like, no. And then she just like, I'm going to do it, and she was so proud of herself. In fact, she sent me an email to tell me she had done it, which was great. And then travel often requires you to try new things. And I always tease my dad. He's now in Southeast Asia right now. And he eats like a child. He does not like foods that are not, your grilled cheese, cheeseburger, French fries, chicken nuggets, And here he's in all these amazing places. And he comes back from this trip in particular, because this is, Southeast Asia has a lot of fantastic cuisine. And he just doesn't appreciate it very much. So he comes back and he's dropped like 10 pounds from it. Although he does love his sweets, so hopefully he'll find some bakery or some sort of something to do, ice cream. And so I always tease him, I'm like, you're in these beautiful places and you need to start eating some of the food. So, but our travelers do enjoy it and really love it. And it causes you to sometimes face fears and really expand your comfort zone. Overcoming obstacles. We all know that travel provides many obstacles, and it's different for some people. Potentially could be health concerns, right? So we always encourage people to make sure they're up to date on their vaccines, things like that they, to make sure that they are fit to travel. And as I mentioned before studying, though, some people are concerned about the walking or whatever. Really understanding, and I think I'm jumping ahead here, but really understanding the trip and how strenuous it's going to be. A lot of people will underestimate internationally flying, okay? You say, I'm sitting on a plane, I can sit, but you sit on almost all flights going to Europe or anywhere, beyond that, will require an overnight flight, right? At least usually 8 hours. And so if you are someone who cannot sleep on a plane, that really can, I'm getting ahead here, because I'm going to talk about some things. But, to be up, if they're up all night, you're going to be sleep deprived, things like that. So it's really important that you understand that do everything you possibly can. I'm going to go into this in my travel tips to make that flight manageable for yourself. So if you do have health concerns, please address them before the trip. Financial, right? Travel is expensive. And the jump since pricing since COVID, I know because I do our pricing, has been extremely surprising. Hotel rooms, cost of everything has just gone up. So it's really important that you set a travel budget. How much per year or how much, whatever, every 2 years, or however much you're traveling, how much do I have to spend? And make sure you stick to it. It's really important. When you do decide on a trip, and if it's international, or even sometimes in the States, you want to notify your bank of travel plans to avoid any issues with your credit or debit cards abroad. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later on. Mobility issues, I mentioned that. If you travel with a group, all the descriptions will have some sort of description of the physical activity level. Sometimes we partner with like Colette or Globus or Gate One, and they will have numbers that correspond, and they really give you, here's what the expectation is. You are able to walk for 2 to 3 miles. You're able to climb stairs. You're able to stand. If you have been to Europe, many of those countries are not ADA compliant. It is rough walking. It is cobblestones. The bus can't get through some of those narrow places, so you don't pull right up to the attraction or whatever you're going to see. So it's it's really important that you feel comfortable with that. So the other thing I wanted to mention, okay, we'll go to group travel. So as I mentioned before, group travel can be really nice if you're someone who does not want the planning, but wants the enjoyment of the trip, and wants to travel with, with people. And so if you are doing group travel, know how many people you want to travel with, and make sure you choose a trip that is going to match that. If you're someone who doesn't care if you're on with 50 people on a trip, then that's fine, know that. But if you're someone who wants a little bit, less number of people, smaller group, then make sure that you're factoring that in. Group travel, it can be provided, and I'll talk a little bit about, obviously there's lots of companies that provide that. And then travel insurance, and there's a lot of questions that people have with travel insurance, and I can answer at any that you may have. But travel insurance, when you purchase travel insurance, you want to make sure that it has cancellation, right? And some of them are canceled for a specific reason, and some are canceled for any reason. Okay. You want to know which type you're purchasing. And then the second part is if you're traveling internationally, you want to make sure it has a medical component to it, because many people's insurance, Medicare, supplementary insurance, will not cover claims in a foreign country. So those are the two pieces you really want to look at and make sure you understand what you're purchasing. You can purchase it if you do a group trip, whoever you purchase the trip through will offer some sort of insurance, but you can also purchase it on your own through any insurance company that is reputable. It is important also, when you purchase travel insurance, you do it when you deposit, okay? And the reason for that is if you purchase the travel insurance when you make your first deposit, you will receive a waiver for pre-existing, it's called a pre-existing clause waiver, which means that the insurance company cannot deny your claim. Let's say you have high blood pressure and then on the trip you have an incident involving your heart. They can't deny you any coverage for that. And there's some more technical things, but that's kind of broad. So I'm sure if you do have any, we can talk a little bit more about travel insurance later. So now let's get into the travel tips, because this is probably what you are interested in. The number one thing, if you travel, I'm sure you've heard about TSA PreCheck and also Global Entry. So these are all programs. They're called Trusted Traveler Programs, and you get them through the Homeland Security. That's the website. And what this allows you to do is to have the TSA PreCheck program is $78. It's valid for 5 years. And it lets you get through security more quickly, the screening, and you don't have to take off your shoes, things that others would have to do. It allows you to get through a little bit more quickly. This is if you would want to get this if you're only really traveling in the U.S., okay? The next one is Global Entry Program, and this gives you all the benefits of a TSA PreCheck, okay? So you get all the security benefits, but when you return and are going through customs, if you've ever been out at O'Hare on an afternoon and you see the customs line and it's an hour to get through all those people standing, if you have Global Entry, you go to the kiosk, you stand there, you scan your passport, they take a picture, they give you a receipt, and you hand it to the agent, and you are through. So it's a much quicker process. This is $120. Again, it gives you when you're leaving, it gives you the security. Now, some airlines, if you're flying an international airline, will not recognize the TSA PreCheck number. It won't be on your reservation. But always when you return, the Global Entry part the customs piece will be in effect. Okay, if you're booking your own flights, this is a big one. I recommend booking directly with the airlines. Okay, I've had phone calls from people who have used some of the third-party sites, and they've had changes. I'm telling you what, as someone who books a lot of group, I got 4 emails from American Airlines on Monday with flight changes for 4 different flights. And that's the 5th one that happened on one of my flights that I've had booked for 6 months. So all these changes, things like that, or if you need to make a change, sometimes those third parties, it's really difficult to get through. And if you've booked directly with the airline, it is very clear what type of policy is your ticket is. Are you getting a non-refundable? Are you getting a refundable? You know, is it credit? Is it cash back to the original payment? Whatever you know, so that's really important. Also, their customer service then can help you if you need to rebook, if you need to reschedule, if you need to make changes. Or if your flight's been canceled and you're frantically trying to get. I also recommend, if you're able to download the app of the airline you're flying with, because oftentimes you will get notifications and things before. So it's really important you're ahead of the game. So if there are changes that are made, you know, and can hopefully get on a different flight. When you're traveling, it's a really good idea to have copies of your passport with you in case you lose your passport. We've had this happen with travelers. They lose their passport.
Stolen.
Yeah. So this person left it in a bathroom. So you want to make a copy of it. You want to use your phone, have it on your phone. If you want to have a paper copy, have it in if you have a travel partner, have it in their suitcase. You have the other one in yours. But it's really important because they can process things more quickly if they have your picture. The same goes with a lot of countries require visas or e-tickets to enter, and you'll get like a QR code or one, and you want to have a picture of that. A lot of people like to have the physical paper, which is just fine because sometimes your cell phone doesn't work or whatever, which is great, but the picture would work even if you didn't have Wi-Fi. So you would be able to bring up a picture. So take pictures of your important documents. The medication. Depending on where you're traveling. If you're in the US, obviously there's pharmacies all over the place that you probably can go to and get refills, but you definitely want to pack an extra week's worth of medication and then also carry it onto the airplane. Never ever put it in your checked bag. I also recommend having a printout or a picture of your medication lists. If you have you take pictures of your prescriptions. Sometimes people will ask, when I'm flying, do I need to leave my medication in their original containers? And ideally, yes, but some people have a lot and their containers may be very large. So if you're not bringing your original container, take a picture of your original container with maybe the pill in front of it, and then also have maybe a printout from your doctor. Some countries, it hasn't been an issue if people have been putting them in their pill sorters, and it hasn't been an issue, but it potentially could be. So you always want to just have it just in case. To make jet lag easier, and I mentioned, sleeping on the plane, if you can, okay? And then stay awake the day you arrive. So if you travel in a group, you will know you're going to arrive in the morning at some point. They're going to have an activity for maybe 2 to 3 hours at most, and it's going to be an easy activity. You're going to get back to the hotel. They'll have a dinner planned usually, and then it's early bedtime so that you get right on the schedule of where you're going. If we took you right to the hotel and you took a nap, then you know that kind of takes you off the schedule. The other thing I want to mention, if you are taking a sleep aid on the plane to help you sleep, make sure you've taken it before and that's not your first experience with it on the airplane. We actually had a woman who took something. She had never taken it before. She got to the hotel and she was so out of it, and so that we had to fly her son over to come and take her home. She was just so. And we were, it was a big mess. So we weren't sure exactly what was going on, and it ended up being she had taken something. So just make sure you know what it's going to be. And if they dim the lights and they try and make it quiet, and that's good. The other thing we're starting to recommend, so everyone when you fly, you can bring one checked bag for most airlines, and then you can bring more if you need to, but ideally no. And then you can bring a carry-on. And instead of bringing that traditional wheeled carry-on, we're recommending bringing backpacks. Because if you have your checked bag and you have your carry-on bag, and then you have a personal item you can bring as well, that's a lot to carry. And so if you have a backpack as your carry-on, it's really easy to have your stuff secure. You have it on your back, and then you just have your checked bag and maybe a personal item that's easy. It's really nice. The other thing it's nice for is if you are on a group trip that has a motor coach, you can bring this on the motor coach during the day, because the motor coaches allow you to leave things on. So you can pack an umbrella, rain stuff, sunscreen, whatever you may need, and then just leave it on the bus every day. Instead of, the fewer things you have, the better, because fewer things to lose or try and manage. The other important thing is to make sure you bring 2 major credit cards, and they should be a Visa or MasterCard. They can both be MasterCard, they can both be Visa, but Discover, Amex are not as widely accepted. So if you have a Visa or MasterCard, it's going to be accepted. If you've traveled recently, especially in Europe, everything is credit card, right? Everything is credit card. Cup of coffee, credit card. So, which is kind of nice, because then you're not carrying cash. And what you want to make sure is, are you going to have foreign transaction fees on your credit card? If you have a choice, sometimes it'll ask, do you want this in the currency you're in, or do you want it in dollars? You always choose the currency whatever country you're in, you choose their currency. Some companies will require you let them know when you're traveling, to make sure that it'll work. But you want 2 cards just in case one doesn't work. You also, a lot of times people, instead of getting the currency ahead of the trip, will simply bring their ATM card with them. And this is the only time you should be using your ATM card, is at an ATM, or debit card, I should call it, right? I dated myself with the ATM. So when you bring your debit card, make sure you only use it in an ATM machine. Don't use it for purchases, because the credit card company have better fraud protection on than your debit card. Okay, so when you're in a country and if you use the ATM, it'll dispense the money in the local currency. Okay, so instead of having to go and say, well, how much am I going to need, and then am I ever going to use this, and I have to exchange it, and then everyone's quickly at the airport spending their last, with all kinds of candy and stuff like that. So you also will have to let your bank or credit union know you're traveling if you're going to use your debit card. But you can also get currency at your local, bank, credit union, depending on what type it is. You may have to let them know. You definitely want to do it at least a week ahead so that they can order it if they don't have it. Okay. The other thing we're telling people to do, knock on wood, we've only had 1 trip in the last 2 years where luggage was lost, and we're talking people are flying constantly, and that was on the return, so it wasn't as big a deal. However, we've been on trips where there are other travelers in a group, and they had luggage lost, and it took them 7 days to get it back. So if you are traveling with someone, it's sometimes nice to put some of your clothes in their suitcase, and they do the same in yours, so that if one of the bags are lost, you have it. And some people do this with their checked bag. They'll put an outfit or 2 inside their checked bag, or their carry-on bag, their backpack or whatever. They make sure they have at least something to wear. So it's always a good idea to, you could split it up. That works well. On the airplane, it's important to get up and walk around. We know that you don't want to be constantly sitting. Compression socks are always a good idea if it's a long flight. And hydrating at least the day before, the day of, is a very good idea. Your cell phone. People are always wondering, how do I communicate with home if I'm traveling internationally? Number 1, you want to check with your cell phone provider, because you're going to want to use your cell phone maybe for maps or things like that you don't want to have to download. So you want to be able to use your data. So if the major cell phone companies now have really pretty good international plans. So that's your first stop. The other thing you can do is you can use WhatsApp. It's a free app, and it allows you to make phone calls, send text messages, pictures, whatever, anytime that you have Wi-Fi. Okay, so hotels in most countries, there's Wi-Fi is free. So for our group, a lot of people will, if they don't do the international calling plan, they will do the WhatsApp. The other person has to have WhatsApp as well. That's the only thing. So when you're calling, they have to have the WhatsApp as well. But my dad calls me from all over the world. He's been to, I think now, 82 countries. But he calls me from everywhere, and he uses this one a lot of times when his international plan won't work. So that's it's a good backup to have.
You can also use Messenger on Facebook.
Yeah, you can use Messenger on Facebook. Yep. Make sure to never carry all your money or credit cards with you when you are out during the day. This is a big one, especially depending on where you're going to be in Europe, India, some of those other countries. Pickpocketing is super rampant. It is London, Paris. So it's really good for you to take whatever cash you think you're going to need, one credit card. Do not carry your passport unless you're obviously leaving that. Everything should be in the hotel safe. You take out what you need for that day, and then if something happens, you're okay. Sometimes people just lose things as well. And so it's really important. And then you need to make sure that before you leave the hotel, you're checking the safe, right? And you're not leaving things in the safe. Some people will take a shoe and they will put a shoe in the safe because they have one shoe out and one shoe in the safe as a reminder, or put a sign on the safe. I don't know what you want to do, but whatever, just to make sure you don't leave it. But yeah.
Don't forget the combination to your safe.
Yeah, that's also a good one. Don't forget the combination. Yes. So these are some of the tips that I just put together from questions that I'm frequently asked from our travelers. But I'm really interested to hear questions that you guys might have. I know people are asking about where to travel, and it really depends on your personal experience or what you like. We see it's interesting. We obviously with COVID, that changed everybody's life and definitely changed our travel landscape for a good while. And so now people are wanting to travel, which is fantastic. So I think the most important thing is what do you want to see, and what are you capable of, and what can you afford? And those are the things that are important.
How long you want to be away is exceedingly important. Jean's trips tend to be relatively short. Mm-hmm. If you like us, we'll like to go for a month or longer, or now we're heading down to Alabama for 3 months, but Jean's trips are 7 to 10 days, and they are great. Packed in, very packed in.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so any questions for me? Yes.
Just one question. Does your travel begin in this area, getting you to the airport?
It does. Mm-hmm. It does.
On the bus at 6 a.m. and it takes you down to the airport.
It does. And if you travel with Colette, Globus, Mayflower Tours and Travel, Gate One, any of those, they will provide also, usually they will provide transportation to the airport if you live within a certain radius. And if you don't, and I can say this because I'm a Van Gelder, but I'm not part of that family, you can take the Van Gelder airport transfer. Yes, down to the airport, but ours does. Yes, and you had a question.
Yeah, what about traveling on a budget like you're talking about?
Yeah, so what's really important when you travel on a budget, so you know how much you have. And then what you'd want to do is decide if it's a trip you are planning, right? So for example, I plan our trips, and let's say I'm gonna do a domestic trip. I know what I want the cost to be around based on what I know our travelers can afford and also how many days. I know what hotels I'm gonna budget my hotels, right? And say, I'm gonna think the average is about this per night. Depending on where you are in the country, and depending where you're willing to stay. If you're willing to stay by an airport, you're gonna get the best rates, okay? If you don't wanna stay by the airport and wanna stay in a downtown location, you're gonna pay a little bit more for that. Hotel airports, depending on where you are domestically, are probably running, I'm seeing like, and taxes too, right? The tax are significant. So they'll advertise a rate of 125, you put the taxes, you're looking at 150 for sure, per night. And then, so I always start with my hotels, and schedule those out. And then how am I getting there, right? What are flights like? To schedule flights, it's usually a good idea to schedule flights between right around, you could start watching flights, but usually when the flight schedules first come out, which is usually 11 months, okay? They come out 11 months. The prices are typically higher then. When the flights just come out, they will be higher. Then they'll see how inventory is going, right? And so that sweet spot, it really depends. It's not always accurate, but usually the sweet spot is between that, 9 to 7 months out from the trip because they still have enough inventory. Google Flights is a great tool because you can track prices and get alerts when the prices drop. And you can see all the flight schedules for all of the airlines, except for a couple of them. But most of them are all on there. And you don't have to purchase them through there. You just can see, okay, I want to go, and I only want, we try and fly only nonstop. And for various reasons, right? But number one, that's why we don't have a lot of bags lost, because it's direct flight and it's most convenient and helps with the duration of the trip. But if the flights are not always, people assume if you add some stops, it's going to be cheaper. That's not always the case. But you will also see, the tracking, if you can avoid flying, good days to fly usually for flights. The other thing, the Google will give you a calendar showing you what the flight costs are for like the month, so you can see, but usually good flight days are Tuesdays and Wednesdays for pricing. If you're gonna drive, are you gonna rent a car, are you gonna take your own vehicle, you've got gas to budget. And then obviously attractions, like what are you going to see? If you are looking to budget, if you're looking to keep your budget down, we have so many beautiful national parks, state parks. When I showed you that picture of Niagara Falls, part of that trip, Watkins Glen State Park is beautiful. It is amazing. It's in New York, it's in the Finger Lakes region, and it's got like 15 waterfalls that are fantastic. And that is a minimal fee to get into. So you can really, depending on what your interests are, you can really help. There's a lot of, a lot of the museums, a lot of the historical things are inexpensive to get into and really provide a lot of really neat places. So I think it really boils down to taking your budget and breaking it down, how many days do you want to be gone and how much do I have to spend each day? And then knowing your most expensive cost is going to be usually lodging. A lot of people will do, if you're going to one place and staying, you could do like a rental, a house rental if you've got, like a family staying. For example, I have 6 people in my family, and when we go to stay, that's 3 hotel rooms. So it's oftentimes a lot less expensive for me if we're staying in one area to do through VRBO or Airbnb or something like that. So I think the crucial part is how much do I have to spend each day and what do I want to do. The other piece that someone contacted me and they were interested in taking their family someplace and they have a large, like 8 people. And that's expensive. They wanted to go international and they wanted to go someplace warm. So we talked about an all-inclusive resort. And there, in the Caribbean or Mexico, or there are a lot of really good properties down there. And so that was a way to help with their budget, because they know all drinks, all food, gratuity, tax, they knew what it was, and they're no unexpected. So it depends, and then they can do daily excursions out of that, depending on what they wanted to see. Yeah, so those are some ideas. There are a lot of we did a fun trip. It was Route 66, and it was different sections. So we did the first section, second, and third. And I planned it, and it was really, there were so many, and there were hardly any admissions to that, because everything is, but I thought that would be a really fun, like that road trip idea, but there are so many, the United States, if you don't want to travel internationally, the United States has so many amazing places. And I think you just start, searching, and we do a trip without a destination, and other companies do too. It's called a mystery trip. People don't know, but what it requires us to do, we look for unusual things, right? Things people wouldn't stop at. And so that would be a great idea, because usually, again, those are not expensive, but they're really unique. There's all kinds of there's Amana Colonies, which is a really cool place that has, you learn about that culture, and that's a really cool, I could go on and on, because there's a lot within driving distance, just a couple hours, that you can do, that you can really put together some really neat things.
Amana Colonies has a Christmas weekend.
Yes.
And we were there last
You were, okay. Was it good?
Oh, it was fun.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
Yeah, we've taken groups there. Yeah. We're doing a Christmas in the Carolinas this year. So that's been a fun one. Yeah. But there's a lot of, if it depends on what your level of comfort is, and I think that's the important piece. If you want someone to plan it, you have them do it. If you want to plan it on your own, you can also, people have put itineraries out there, that are free. For example, the Great Lakes, Lake Superior Circle. Yeah, so there's a good one. It's not really good for groups, because when you get into Canada, there's not a lot of big places to stay at, but for like 2, 4, 6 people, it would be really neat to do. So that's a great one. Michigan provides, I don't know if you've been to Michigan lately, but they have their tourism, that whole, they have that Gold Coast, but they have those beautiful New Buffalo, they have artisans, winery. There's a huge winery and brewery industry. They do, especially in the fall. And then you obviously, Mackinac Island. There's a lot to do with the Indiana State Dunes National Park, beautiful. Sleeping Bear Dunes. You can do ATV rides. Holland is beautiful. Have you been to the Henry Ford Museum? That they have that heritage park, and it's really cool. You spend the whole day there. It's outdoor, and you can actually tour the factory. So there's the Great Lakes Museums. There's a fantastic one on Lake Superior. There's also a great one in Ohio. There's so much to do and so much to see. It's really, you can do a lot of really interesting things. And those would all be, really inexpensive.
Salt Lake City area.
Yes, yeah, there's a lot to do. So, I think the most important thing is, obviously it sounds like many of you have traveled, and hopefully you will be inspired to do some more traveling. And if you would like my card, I can give you my card afterwards. I'm always there for a resource, and can help you with any of your travel needs. So thank you so much for attending.